Welcome to Season 4 of the Knack 4 Business Podcast.
Today's show is brought to you by our K4B Profit Snapshot. Here's one question worth sitting with. If you stepped away from your business for 30 days, would it grow or contract? That answer tells you a lot about where you really stand. Try the free 5-minute snapshot. It measures process, profit, and personal freedom. Link is in the show notes.
Question of the audience. Why does your sales process feel busy, but still not produce consistent revenue? Our speaker will unpack why most sales systems fail in the real world, how to stop wasting money on underused tools, and what actually drives adoption, trust, and results. Drawing from decades of leadership at Pipeliners CRM and the legacy of consultative selling, our guest will show you how to align strategy, technology, and the human side of selling into a true revenue engine, not just a dashboard. If you're tired of chasing leads, fighting your CRM, or wondering why growth feels harder than it should, lean in, listen carefully, and start rethinking how your sales system really works. And speaking of that, our guest today is John Golden from Pipeliners CRM. He is the Chief Strategy and Marketing Officer at Pipeliners CRM, where he has spent more than a decade shaping how modern sales teams think, sell, and scale. Former CEO of Huthwaite International, the creators of the legendary Spin Selling and Omega Performance, John brings rare executive insight to the intersection of sales, strategy, and technology. He's also the host of the globally recognized Sales Pop podcast, ranked in the top 2% worldwide, with more than 1,600 episodes, and the author of 2 Amazon best-selling books that challenge sales leaders to think sharper, act smarter, and drive results that actually stick. John, absolute pleasure having you here today. I know we've been hit and miss on getting this together, but I was looking forward to this call. Do you have a favorite quote or saying you want to share with folks?
Favorite quote or saying? I mean, but to be honest, my favorite quote I use a lot these days, particularly because we live in a world of when a lot of things are fake and unreal, and you know. And people talk about authenticity and this and the other. But my favorite quote is from a compatriot of mine, Oscar Wilde, who said, "Be yourself because everyone else is taken." And I think that is just, I think, very profound, to be honest, advice for people, especially in the world we live in today, is be yourself, be your authentic self, and you will stand out because people's radars are up.
So, what brought you into the world of sales? In high school, we were sitting back going, I'm not going to be a farmer, not going to be a mechanic, maybe a lawyer. Yeah. What brought you into sales?
Well, I mean, my career has kind of unfolded in interesting ways. I started as and this current iteration of my career, I started as a technical writer back in Dublin, in Ireland, in the 90s, and a small startup there that then opened an office in Silicon Valley. So during the dot-com era, I came over to Silicon Valley, and that was my real first introduction to sales, because I came from the product development, product marketing part of the organization. But when I came to the States, I became somebody who dragged around from customer to customer by sales reps, to be the kind of expert, if you like, and to do breakfast with seminars and speak. So that was kind of my introduction into sales. And then from there, I've always kind of straddled like sales, marketing, business, leadership, and that. I was at a startup at one stage, a small startup in the K-12 industry, and that's where I got to be in that situation where I built the sales and marketing from the ground up, with nothing, when there was nothing there. And then I was fortunate to, as you said, I ran Huthwaite, which is Spin Selling, a global sales consultancy. So got to work with fantastic consultants, to be honest, and also then to work with large companies, global companies, on helping to transform their sales teams. And then after that, then I joined Nicholas, the founder of Pipeliners CRM. He was a client of mine. I had started management consulting, and he asked me to come on board and help build the go-to-markets for Pipeliner CRM. And I like this because it kind of got me back into the technology aspect as well. So everything kind of came full circle. But I've always kind of seen myself, Bernie, to be honest, as not sales, not marketing. I see myself as, if you like, business. I see business, all aspects of business, and go to market is where I like to focus, not just exclusively on any part.
So When you're involved in the just gonna touch back on the sales,
Yeah.
element, although your broad spectrum, what was the were there any early mistakes that helped shape how you look at, leads today, how you manage that space? Is there something you saw going, "Yeah, you shouldn't have done that, buddy," because, you just tapped the person in the eyeball?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I learned, and it's not so much a mistake, is more as kind of observing what the best salespeople that I ever met. And I was fortunate to work with some, to have some work for me, just phenomenal ones. And what I noticed, Bernie, is preparation. They never compromised on preparation. And they always, and I think that's a mistake, and I probably made that mistake myself as well, in the early days, is not putting enough time into the preparation and not having that as a non-negotiable. And the best salespeople I've ever worked with, that is non-negotiable, the preparation part. They're not going to, and this is unfortunately sometimes as people get more experienced, they wonder why their sales career doesn't go on an upward trajectory. And it's often because they've stopped doing the fundamentals because they start to get complacent. Well, I don't need to do that. I can wing this. I've done this so many times. I don't need to prep for Bernie. I'm pretty sure I know what he wants. No, the best ones I've ever come across they don't compromise on prep, and they have it, and not just they don't just pay lip service to it. It's on their calendar. How many salespeople have you worked with, Bernie? Where you look on their calendar, you see the appointments, but the best ones, you don't just see the appointments, you see the prep time.
Interesting, yeah, no, well, I think that's true in any instance if you're looking to engage somebody in an activity, right? Whether you're actually selling them a product or a service or you're just getting buy-in, right? You
Mhm.
just because that's all it is. It's you're getting buy-in to a thing. So that kind of leads into the buyer psychology element. What do you see behind the buyer psychology that a person's got to understand? And the buyer might be the spouse, convincing her, let's go on a road trip.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a buyer point of view, I mean, I think today one of the things that obviously, buyers are more, you know, on the surface more educated, right? Or maybe I wouldn't say more educated. I'd say have access to more information, put it that way.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, access to information, you may have a lot of information. It doesn't mean you know how to interpret that information or you know how to go a bit deeper into it. So I think, buyers are awash with information, and they're also getting bombarded from all sides now and from multi channels. Like they can't go anywhere. Their phones are blowing up. Everything is blowing up constantly. And so I think from a buyer psychology point of view, if they can't tell immediately that you understand them, like if you get a chance to communicate, however, if you can show that you have some level of understanding of the industry they operate in, what's going on with their company, maybe, the things affecting their role, and that is educate yourself and be able to communicate then you have a chance of that person maybe engaging with you. I think we're not interested in talking to people who want to ask us like what we do and where all of that kind of stuff. We want people to come to us prepared, and we want to know quickly if this is somebody that we want to engage with. And the only way you will establish that is if you have done your homework and then you have an insatiable curiosity that you really want to understand on a deeper level, and therefore you know how to ask good questions, but then more importantly, you know how to listen, and then you know how to go further, how to develop that conversation and go deeper with and really get into a kind of valuable conversation. And I think today sometimes we live in this kind of shortcut culture, this busy cultures. People want to shortcut these processes. They don't want to. They want to just get in quickly. Like, come on, AI, give me my ideal prospect, and I can make sure that they're ready to buy right now, so I don't even have to bother. I can just call them up and sign the deal. And life just doesn't work that way.
Only if you know that you need milk or toilet paper and there's a
Yeah.
pandemic, then it's about the only time it's gonna go hard and fast. The one thing about buying psychology though, some people promote is that it's the emotion and then the logic follows it afterwards. And so is that part of the preparation and understanding then what the emotion is of the buyer? If I'm talking to someone in finance, I know the number one thing that will come up is how much is the doggy in the window first?
Mm.
As opposed to, I like the red sports car. How do you frame that psychology piece and then provide the supporting information that later on they can say, "Oh, let me justify it." Or is it the same thing in, let's say, an RFP process where we just want to know the facts first and now sell us on the sexy stuff?
Yeah. No, I think one of the things that one mistakes that people often make is, especially in B2B, consultative or complex sales. Number one, you're often selling to a group of people, right? You're not just selling to
Yep.
one person. But I think where people often overlook, because you're talking about the emotional part, is and and I always emphasize this, like in a B2C purchase, like if I go over to Best Buy now and buy the latest greatest TV, 4 Ultra K, whatever. The downside of that, there's not really a big downside of that. Perhaps probably I bring it home and my wife goes, "We don't need a new TV," and sends me back. But basically, like there's not that much risk involved for me. And we miss this, right? On B2B purchasing, everybody involved in the decision is carrying some risk to themselves, right? Because if you make a good decision and maybe to purchase, a product or a service, and you're one of the lead people or you're one of the major decision makers, and that turns out well, that's career enhancing for you, makes you look good. Alternative doesn't turn out so good. You don't want your name associated with that disaster, right? So oftentimes we miss the fact that the buyer has two hats on. They have the company hat on and they have their personal hat on, right? And you need to understand that and realize that part of what you're going to be doing here is helping to remove that risk and reassure all these individuals, that it they can trust the process, they can trust the outcomes, they can trust you. So trust building is massive, but you can't do that unless you start off recognizing the fact that there are two sets of motivators here. There's the company motivator and there's the personal motivator.
So, I mean, if you're a salesperson, you have more than one client typically, unless, of course, it's a really big project. To manage that, needs a CRM, a customer relationship management
Yeah.
platform. Why do CRMs, how do they succeed and how do they go sideways? So, how do you not use them properly?
Yeah. Well, I think you got to go back to the kind of beginning of CRM, even back in the Oracle Siebel, all those days, and with the pre-Salesforce. CRM was built from a command and control perspective, and like most CRMs that are on the market today, still kind of follow that model. And that is, they were always built so management and executives could get all the information that they want to get, right? And the people left out of the equation were the people who they expected to supply all this data to them, i.e., the salespeople. And so, traditionally, over the years, you would get that argument from salespeople. It's not in the CRM, and they'd say, "Well, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to sell, or do you want me to do data entry?" And of course, I'd say, "Well, I'd like you to do both," and they'd say, "Well, I can't. I don't have time for that." And I had a lot of sympathy for them because the systems were not set up to make it easy for the salesperson, and not just make it easy for them. They weren't set up to bring any value to the salesperson. That was, for me, that was the biggest thing. So you're asking salespeople to use a system for the benefit of management that has no real benefit to them, right? Or perceived benefit. So, I mean, that's why we took a completely different approach with Pipeliner and built it from a salesperson first perspective. So if a CRM, how a CRM is valuable to you is if you have your sales process very well defined within your CRM with stages. And then within those stages, you actually have activities that need to be completed before you can move on to the next stage. So a very well defined sales process. And because a well-defined sales process will create consistency in your sales organization. And that's one of the huge benefits then is in a lot of companies like you and I, Bernie, can have an identical opportunity, right? Pretty much
Yep.
identical. You put it in stage two, I put it in stage three because you feel you're a little bit more conservative than I am. I'm a little bit more aggressive than you are. But now the forecast is off because we have two opportunities that are pretty much identical. They should be in the same stage. If they're in two different stages, then it means that both of us are interpreting as opposed to following the process, right? Therefore, if you have a rigorous process, and this has been proven by research, McKinsey, ZS Associates have done research that the best performing sales organizations have a well-defined, very well-defined sales process that is updated regularly because, as we know, buyers are dynamic, and that it's rigorously enforced, and that every stage in that sales process has built-in activities that have to be completed, and it's rigorously enforced, and it's consistently used. And then you have both, there's value both ways once you have that in place. And then if your system, like we do with with AI tools, then actually can focus you on the opportunities or on the places where you need to pay attention, because we all feel like we have no time today. So the system should also help focus you and make sure that you're focused on your high value activities. So that's the difference, I think, Bernie, is that the executives and the management get everything they need if the salespeople are using and adopting the system, and the salespeople will use and adopt the system if they see some value to themselves in there. And like I said, if you don't have a rigorous and well-defined sales process, and one that you're constantly looking at and tweaking, then you're, like I said, then you have a guideline, and we all get to interpret it the way we want. And then you wonder why your forecasts are off.
What could possibly go wrong? So when you're doing the reevaluations, then is there kind of a set cycle? Is it dependent on size? Is it dependent on industry? Is it dependent on volume of traffic? And I'm thinking, let's say, for example, let's say everyday use devices like smart mobile phones.
Mm.
Actually into any specific brand. Next thing you know, the next iteration says, "Wow, we have better camera," and there's a kind of a legacy issue with BlackBerry where no one cares about the camera, and over the edge they went, right? And
Yeah.
the camera was everything. Is that where the CRM is picking up the feedback? It's not just the sales person in there. That CRM also deals with customer service, that deals with what's going out on the outside on social media. I've heard one instance of where I think the person was probably using Salesforce, and someone was typing in, "Why does my device do blah, whatever it is," right? And the person hopped on and says, "Well, try this," and thank you so much. And it happened to be an agent for the not an agent as in secret, but someone on behalf of management.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. I think your CRM system should be able to gather as much information as it can about your customers, about your current customers, about your prospects, and yeah, customer success is a critical component of it. So the and the CRM, like pipeline, it should be able to identify, give you a health check. You should be able to it should bubble up for you quickly. Say, here are accounts of yours that need attention. They're not
Yeah.
looking that healthy, and you can define whatever it is, the criteria for a healthy account for you. So then, customer success can intervene. Other things is also white space, is looking at what have you sold to this particular customer, and compared to what have you sold to like customers, and then you can look at gaps, and you can say, okay, here's upsell opportunities. So yeah, there's so much more. It should be your window into revenue generation, into customer retention, into customer, success, into turning, customers into advocates.
So you kind of touched on something because originally when you hear the word CRM, you think of, well, here's my Rolodex of, contacts, blah, blah, blah. Salesperson makes a connection, sales sold. It just shows that little tick box. And we've just kind of expanded it much wider now because
Yeah.
there's more of a whole ecosystem that's in behind
Mhm.
the scenes. And that's a lot of information. So is AI something that's coming into play going, hey, there's a gap here, or we're noticing a bubble of activity, whatever it might be, whether it's something you anticipated or it's not been expected. Do you find AI being leveraged that way?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we have integrated. I mean, we were on the AI train many years ago, to be honest, like way back. But we have integrated a lot of AI into our system today. But with the way we look at AI for CRM is very much in a supportive role so that it can extract. For instance, maybe you and I, maybe you're a prospect, maybe you and I have been going back and forth over the last year and everything, and now we're re-engaging. AI can then go back and like go look at all the communications and everything and bring me up to date and say, here we are, and here's the thing, and make it very easy for me to reacquaint myself with the situation. And we built in lots and lots of tools like that that can help you to be more efficient. So therefore, our philosophy is the AI tools provide you with the opportunity to do what salespeople do best, and that is build relationships and the human element. And that's why we really believe in the human element. AI can do all the other stuff and help you to be as prepared and informed and to be as efficient and productive as you can be, and that allows you. But then the important part is how good are you at building the relationship and actually doing the human part of it that AI isn't able to do right now. However, one caveat I will put on this though is that what people don't understand, a lot of people don't understand today, is that you can bring AI tools into your company, you can bring AI tools into your products, whatever it is. AI is only going to be as good as your data, right? Most companies have crappy data. Let's be honest. Like most companies have horrible, horrible data, duplicates, bad information, all of that kind of stuff. So if you don't clean your data, any AI tools that you bring in to leverage off of your own data sets or whatever is going to fail if your data is dirty. And if your data, because AI can only operate off of what the information you provide it, right? So, like I said, so we do in our system, like we have a duplication checker. We have a way of cleaning data for people. But that's what's going to catch a lot of people out, Bernie, is the fact that they don't understand is the AI tools can do a tremendous amount of things for you, but you need to start off and take a good hard look at your data. And if your data is messy and not very clean, you need to clean your data first. And then you need to put in some process by which you maintain data integrity going forward. Otherwise, your AI tools, and maybe they'll work 3 out of 5 times.
My wife works in healthcare, and one of the things you never want to do is mix two patients up, especially where they're different ages and different sexes, but the same name. It's like totally different results. One's not going to be having a pregnancy, and the other one's probably going to need a walker. So just, yes, that's keeping your data clean, and I totally can understand that. So is that a service that you offer then? What I'm hearing is here's a CRM. Look for things that are changing in the environment. Are you approaching people? In other words, you, the salesperson, and then is the company then following up and doing the flow of the information? Is that a kind of a whole package that Pipeliner offers?
Yeah, I mean, we do lots of stuff for you. We do obviously the platform. We offer the duplication checker that comes with it, so people can do their own if they need help with data stuff. We do professional services. So yeah, I mean, we supply all of those services. But the good thing is, we, like I said, I mean, we have the experience. We know upfront. We know the pitfalls and stuff, so we can help people through this process, and we onboard people very quickly. Because one of the other things we did actually, Bernie, which was a kind of revolutionary, is our front end is very visual, drag and drop. It's very easy to use. But we did that for the back end too, for the administrator part. So we made it just as easy so that, and here's a philosophical difference, and I think a very, very, very important one is in most organizations, say if you have a Salesforce implementation, right? You're going to hire somebody to be your Salesforce admin, somebody who's done all the who does the certifications and all of that. Now they're not a salesperson, they're not a business person, they're an administrator. So now you are putting you're telling them what you want the system to do with it, and then they're going off and interpreting that and trying to do it. Whereas with us, with the drag and drop, with it being visual, with it being user friendly, is that people working in the business can actually administer the system, which is what you want, because they're the people who really understand what they need the system to do. How many times have you seen people go, like with the Salesforce admin, here's what I want, and then they come back and show it. Not quite. I need it kind of like this. Okay, off you go. Whatever, a month passed before you get, the report you were looking for in the way you want it, or whatever it is. So we have built it so that people working in the business can administer it, and for me that's the beautiful kind of combination, is where you have the system administered by the same people who are working in sales, in the business.
User interface. I totally get it. I've used another system without naming it. It's a fairly large platform.
Mhm.
And our my previous job, the finance department loved it. And I'm just sitting there and I'm looking at it and going, "Oh God, oh God, oh God, what's this?" And
Mm.
I got told, "Stop pressing all the buttons." Okay, fair enough.
Well, if the finance department loved it, it's bound to be, like, very unfriendly for salespeople.
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, and it worked for them, but yeah. I'll leave that alone. But yes, it just and I get it, and it almost reminded me of DOS prompt times, 1980s
Yeah.
data entry, and I'm going, and this wasn't 1980 anymore, and I thought something hasn't changed. Anyhow,
Yeah.
I was told that one time if the last platform that you used that was really operationally well designed is what your expectation becomes. So if you've
Yeah.
used an Amazon website to find a product and, that's the new threshold, per se.
No, absolutely, and I think, and that's why I think, as people become more familiar with leveraging AI and using AI tools, that'll become, as you said, the new standard. You start to say, "Hang on a second, why do I need to learn how to use this piece of software? Why do I need to learn all these clicks and drop downs and why can't an AI agent just do it for me? Why can't I just tell the system what I want it to do?" And I think that's where we're moving towards. I see in the future a time when we'll never learn software again. We'll just interact, in natural language, and we'll just tell the system what we want it to do, and the system will do it. And that's we're leveraging lots of agents now, and we're looking at super agents and things. So when everything is to make at the end of the day is to make it as easy as possible for people to leverage the power of the system without having to spend years learning how to use the system.
You just piqued my interest. What's a super agent?
Well, a super agent is one that controls other agents below it, so you have like the one super agent and then other agents working below it doing specific tasks. Yeah, it's an interesting world that we're entering into.
You have a whole new management structure coming in behind you supporting it. That's fun.
Yeah, I think though that is an important point though, because I think here's the thing about AI, Bernie, that I think a lot of people haven't figured out yet. Right? Is people are seeing AI and the AI tools and stuff. They're seeing it. Yeah, it's a replacement for search. Right? I don't search in Google. I go and put in my prompt here and again, rather than looking at it as literally looking. I mean, the way I use AI today, like I use 6 or 7 different tools, but for me, they are like colleagues now. They're people that I interact with, that I have conversations with, and now the good ones like recall stuff that I've said before that I don't even remember. They say, "Are you referring back to whatever?" And so they become like I have 6 or 7 additional people who work with me. Once you start to look at AI in that way, and you start to say how you are effective when you're interacting with the tool is you have a conversation with it and you build on the conversation, you bring in new information, you react to their say, and that really is the power. And I think people are still using it in a very kind of rudimentary fashion where they just put in one prompt and then take whatever, as opposed to saying, no, no, no. Just think of it like literally like having a conversation with another person, except this person is supposed to know everything.
That it's been given. Hopefully, it's all clean and good. It's
Yeah,
always
yeah, absolutely. And then, I would always, always like question the output and maybe test the output from a number of different models so that you're getting the best. I find different models work better for different things, and sometimes randomly one model will give you a better output than another one, and on a different day the other one will. So I think the experimentation is very important, but it's important to embrace it, and it's important to look at it. As I said, don't look at it like a tool, look at it like a person.
most interesting because I used to view it as originally, what is the answer to this question? What's
Mhm.
the meaning of life? 42.
Yeah,
If you're
42,
watching
yeah.
the
And of all those the age or whatever listening to that, be like, "What are they talking about?"
I used to view it as, ask a question, and then if you're coming up, let's say, to a librarian to do a research paper, well, The librarian already knows what they do for a living, but, in this case, you have to tell AI what they're doing, and then, on goes
Yeah.
the story, and you give context, and I think it's the same thing. And once you have that context, but the super user, I think, is really, or a super AI agent is a really cool concept. Leaping forward into the next part, selling and spin thinking. Tell me, what's the spin thinking all about?
No, I mean, it's just going back to kind of what I said earlier is about, I think there's a lot of, put it this way, there's a lot of people who defaulted into sales, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people who went to college, maybe did a marketing degree, and then they came out at the other end and then realized that there's only, a handful of marketing jobs. And so they go, okay, what's the next, or what's the most available job? Sales, jump into sales. I'll get into marketing later, right? Or I'll find this. And they don't, they get stuck, perceived to be stuck, right? Um, and, uh, and therefore, a lot of them never get proper training, never invest in themselves, never even really kind of embrace the profession, I think, is part of the issue. And therefore, I think it's important that people have a method, learn a methodology or multiple methodologies, but just give yourself a framework. And with Spin was a great questioning frame. It's a great questioning framework for developing a conversation and going deeper and deeper and being very intentional about what you're doing. And I think that is important. The one piece of advice I give to salespeople is invest in yourself. Like, even if your company doesn't train you, if nobody's ever formally trained you, go get your own training, learn, read some books. There's so much stuff online you can get nowadays, but invest in yourself, because you will stand out in an industry where there's such a wide range of skill sets, right? From highly effective top salespeople, to people who are barely surviving, right? So if you want to stand out, is invest in yourself, get some skills, learn a methodology or a couple of methodologies, and constantly practice. And also, you know, uh, find somebody to work with. Maybe find somebody who's an experienced salesperson and say, "Would you mentor me?" And maybe we could do some role playing or whatever. So it's all, for me, it's always about, if you're going to do a job, you might as well learn how to do it the best way you can, as opposed to, and if you've been in sales for a period of time, maybe a time, and you haven't got into that other career that you thought you were going to do. Maybe now's a good time just to embrace the career you're in and invest in yourself.
So, are there any books you would recommend for salespeople?
Oh, well, I'd recommend, I think Spin Selling is still a great book. And then books like Challenger, any of those books are all
Okay.
are all good. So I think, to be honest, I think it's one of those things where, and I'm sure there's new ones that have come out. I think once you start, like, pick up any sales book, just start.
Go for
Start.
your platform pipeliner. Is that for, like, the one or two man shop? Is that for a 50-man company? What size of companies are you looking for? Space.
Yeah, we're very much focused on the mid markets. The so 20, 30 users up to, hundreds and thousands of thousands. We've got some with, several thousand users, some customers. But generally, our sweet spot is very much in the mid market. So I'd say, 30 salespeople, 50, 100, couple of hundred. I mean, that's where we really excel. We're not a platform for onesie twosies. We're not a platform for people who don't understand or embrace sales process, because we are a process engine, and that's something we believe is fundamental. So if you don't really have a sales organization and you don't have the sales process and stuff, we wouldn't be the platform for you.
Well, big.
And that's important. It's always important to know, uh, where you're not a fit as opposed to where you are.
Most true. Most true. So, what's the difference between a sales team and a revenue engine?
A sales team is a discrete group of people. It's just it's just the sales team. It's the salespeople, the sales leadership, and sales operations, whatever they have over there. A revenue engine is when you have sales, marketing, customer success. You basically have the whole organization aligned around the buyer journey, and that you are that prospects or customers are having a uniform experience when they engage with you. So if their first engagement is with you, is through your website or through something that, they're getting the right information, they're getting the right experience, and they engage with the salesperson. They're getting the same experience when they go to implementation and customer success. They're still getting the same experience. So it's the consistency of experience along. That's where you create a revenue engine, is when you have sales, marketing, customer success all aligned, all understanding who your ideal customer profile is and understanding what their role in the process is, and then being able to flow a little bit, so maybe marketing goes a little bit further into sales sometimes. Maybe sales and marketing need to work together later in the funnel, to support them for as they're trying to get something across the line. But it's very much moving away from the siloed
Yeah.
demarcation thinking, the traditional model of, well, good fences make good neighbors, right? Isn't that that's the old adage? And that's the one a lot of organizations, it's demarcation. This is what marketing does this. And then we go up to the wall and we throw it over the wall. Then sales catches it and they do this. Then sales throw it over the wall and implementation pick it up and go. And instead, it's like knock down the walls and just we're a revenue engine.
I like that. I like that a lot. If someone comes in, a company says, okay, I want to use your platform. How long does it take for them to onboard? And then if they have quirks behind the scenes, because there's a reason why they're reaching out to you, right? Because if everything was tickety boo,
Sure.
you they wouldn't be knocking on the door, right?
Yeah.
So if they knock on the door and you say, okay, typical, and I know it varies based on customer locations, and so forth. How long does it take, kind of like, to onboard the system and then find out where the potholes are and or where the wins are, all right? So you can leverage that and get everything in harmony, in balance.
Well, we're actually really the fastest onboarding of any of the CRMs out there, because we have made it so easy to understand. And so for your initial onboarding and learning for the administration part, from the front end part, it's really straightforward, and we often have people up and running in weeks, right? And onboarded. That's the other part of your question is, during the sales process, we bring in the implementation people into it so that they understand clearly what the issues are, what problems you're trying to solve or opportunities you're trying to create. So then during the implementation process, they work very closely with the customer to make sure we're addressing those pain points, and hopefully actually uncovering other opportunities for them to be more efficient. And then we take it further, because we see onboarding. When I say onboarding, say we can have you up and running in a couple of weeks, right? You can up and running using the system. Now, we actually see onboarding as a kind of an infinite loop in many ways, because you're kind of always onboarding people, and that's our philosophy with customer success or customer support, is that we're constantly looking to work with the customer to help them get more out of the system. And for instance, I mean, that informs our customer support philosophy. So if you reach out to customer support, our goal in most organizations for customer support is close the ticket as fast as possible and say, great, ticket closed, we're good. Yes, we obviously want, when you contact us, we will solve your problem as fast as we can, but we'll go deeper, and we'll also look to use that opportunity to maybe educate you more, to maybe suggest there's other features that you're not using that may solve it. But to go much further and to really be a partner and to help you get the most out of it. So our goal isn't close the ticket. Our goal is solve the problem and then see how we can help more. And so that's why. So it's an ongoing partnership, and it's an ongoing process of trying to help them get more and more out of the system.
Is there a baseline infrastructure you need to see in place? Is it all SaaS based?
So it's all SaaS based, yeah. You don't need anything. You just need access to the good old
You
internet.
know, again, having come from an institution and having walked through a server room and going,
Oh, yeah.
pointing my finger, what's that do? Right. And then getting the story and going, how much is that doggy in the window? Egads, more than
Yeah,
a
yeah.
house.
No, it's a great. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's everything has changed so much. I mean, from my Silicon Valley days, I used to go down to the data centers in the middle of the night sometimes, and go down and go into the cages with the systems, like to reboot a router or switch or something, and or to run some, we used to run like stress tests and stuff like that. But those days, great, because now, I mean, we work with Amazon, we're AWS. We're on the AWS infrastructure. So We have fantastic deployed in all different parts of the world. It's fantastic infrastructure, very stable, etc.
So, what's the hardest leadership lesson you've learned during these times?
Just leadership lesson. I think the hardest. I think clarity is one of the most important things, and sometimes we have to ask ourselves: Are we communicating in the clearest way possible? Have we really defined things properly for whoever we're communicating with? And I think the most problems I see in organizations and the most problems leaders have is that maybe they say one thing, but it's heard differently and it's consumed differently by different people. So I think being very conscious of how you communicate. And I think today, to be honest, it's even a little more complicated because we have like 4 or 5 generations in the workplace now. And we have all these different ways that people like to be communicated with, right? I mean, you have
Yeah.
some people who to talk on the phone seems to be like anathema to them. You have to text or people. So I think from a leadership point of view, the days of being able to maybe communicate in one way are gone. You have to start looking at, subdividing your audience, also realizing that maybe you have to communicate the same message in multiple different ways in order to make sure everybody understands. Because at the end of the day, as I said, most problems you see in organizations come from misunderstandings, miscommunications, lack of clarity, people thinking one thing was wanted when it was another. And so I think anytime you can spend that extra time on just making sure everybody is on the same page, everybody understands, it'll stand to you.
Yeah, that's kind of a, pardon the pun, a golden rule should have.
Yeah.
John, how can folks reach out to you? How can they find out more about Pipeliner or better yet, your podcast?
Yeah, Pipeliner, pipelinersales.com. You can take a free trial, go check it out for yourself. You read our customer testimonials, etc. I guarantee you it's very different from anything you've experienced before in the CRM space. Sales Pop, the podcast, you can see it on YouTube, the Sales Pop channel on YouTube, and you can hear it on all of the podcast platforms as well. The best way to contact me is either LinkedIn or just reach out to me at Pipeliner.
I want to say thank you to John Golden. If this is hitting home for you, the audience, there's decades of sales leadership that's happening here, right? From shaping spin selling to guiding the modern CRM and the whole strategy behind it. It's just not just a Rolodex; it's how it integrates with everything else. And John's seen the pattern, and it's the tools that are not failing people. It's the people not using them in alignment with their work. And also, I guess in the final cap off there was making sure everybody's on the same page, right? Because if you're not on the same page, your customer's not going to get the same job. And I want to say thank you so much.
Everything you heard today is for educational purposes only. It's not professional advice. Before you act on anything, talk to a certified expert in your area. Your accountant, your lawyer, someone who knows your situation. We share perspectives. You make the decisions. Want more? Head over to blog.knack4business.com, packed with practical episodes on AI, marketing, leadership, and growth. No fluff, just the good stuff. Subscribe while you're there. Until next time, keep building.